So as you guys know, Trump is mobilizing the National Guard to certain places in the U.S., blue cities. Chicago might be on the list, which honestly isn't that bad because Chicago's cooked, bro. Let me show you guys a tweet that I made earlier on Chicago. This is how ridiculous shit's starting to get in Chicago, bro. I'm pretty sure these are kids. So here's a cop dealing with some kids. And then this little fucking enchilada nigga comes in. Fucking Jorge. Bong, hits him in the back of the head, bro. What? And that nigga fucking runs off like Speedy Gonzalez. Yo. Yo, and these are like kids. What? Bro. Turn this bitch out. Bro, what the hell is going on in America, man?
Welcome, punch!
What the hell is going on in America, bro? What the fuck? Incredible, dude. Incredible. Bro just hit the fucking cop in the back. Dude, growing up, bro, you knew never to touch a cop, man. Like the school resource officer, these kids are terrible, bro. Yo, our generation is cooked.
They need help badly. Chicago.
Guys, our generation is cooked, dude.
Chicago desperately needs help. Just look at the crime statistics.
Right now at 11, is the National Guard headed to Chicago, and could Oakland and San Francisco be next? Tonight, more talk of sending federal troops into more cities. Cities, as the president says, need help. But do they really?
As the president makes more plans and threats, California is embroiled in a lawsuit against the Trump administration over the deployment of troops. Could this have an impact on other cities? Here's NBC's Gia Vang.
We may just go in and do it, which is probably what we should do. They need help badly. Chicago desperately needs help.
That was the moment today. The president saying Chicago is likely the next target to send in National Guard troops. They're already in Washington, D.C., and today President Trump signed executive orders to further his efforts to combat crime in Democratic-controlled cities. That includes Oakland. The town's mayor, Barbara Lee, speaking out about it at a Democratic National Committee summer meeting in Minnesota today.
Donald Trump is just downright wrong about Oakland. Like he's wrong about all the other cities that he trashed.
She told the audience violent crime is down 29%, homicides fell 21%, and the rate of vehicle thefts down 45%. Most recently, as last week, the president also suggested troops could straighten out San Francisco.
Now you look at what the Democrats have done to San Francisco. They've destroyed it. We can clean that up, too. We'll clean that one up, too.
San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie responded tonight with what he has said, that in part, safe and clean streets are our top priority, and the results are clear. Crime is at its lowest point in decades. Visitors are coming back, and San Francisco is on the rise. California is still in the middle of a federal lawsuit asking a judge to determine if the president broke a federal law when he sent troops to L.A. in June to engage in civilian law enforcement. That ruling still hangs in the balance, with motions filed just today. A hearing is scheduled for mid-September, and Santa Clara University constitutional law professor Margaret Russell said she doubts there will be a decision issued then. But when there is, she said it all depends how it could impact the rest of the nation.
In terms of precedent, it won't have precedent for those other cities and cases, but they can be parallel arguments in different parts of the country in different federal courts that could then be subject to U.S. Supreme Court review.
What if the Supreme Court takes up this California case? Russell says there are roads that lead to that scenario. She said the decision from the highest court would involve the Constitution, which would then impact the cities that President Trump is threatening to deploy troops in. Gia Vang, NBC, Bay Area News.
All right. As you guys can see, the Democrats are freaking out about that, man. Their shitty-ass cities are getting taken over because they can't control their own cities, bro. So here you can see here, Trump falsely claims there's not much crime in red states. CNN, obviously, you know. CNN has had an axe to grind with Trump ever since the town hall meeting. You guys remember when he did that town hall meeting? They had some of the highest views they've had in a long-ass time. And he went back and forth with that girl, and he was like, you know, you're a nasty woman. Remember that one? Bro, ever since that day, CNN has been hard on for this guy, bro.
doing more to police American cities. It's the how and where that he's still fuzzy on. The president signed an order to create so-called specialized units in the National Guard trained in police work. National Guard troops are, as we speak, already patrolling the streets of this city, Washington, D.C., and as of this weekend, some are armed. The Secretary of Defense spoke on behalf of members of the Guard patrolling the nation's capital.
We're really proud to be a part of defending the nation's capital and ensuring it is safe and beautiful and working with law enforcement. And
Now, there's been a lot of criticism from the left where they're saying like, yo, crime in D.C. wasn't even that bad. Why is this guy, bringing out the National Guard?
President, let me tell you, the morale of the troops, getting out there, talking to them, they love this mission. They're grateful to be doing it.
Crime is actually down here in D.C., but the Republican-led House Oversight Committee is now investigating whether D.C. crime statistics have been manipulated after the president claimed they were without evidence. Questions loom as to where President Trump wants the Guard sent next. He has blue cities in states with governors who are Democrats in his sights, but it's cities in states that Trump won last election that have some of the highest crime rates, according to last year's statistics from local jurisdictions, a fact the president ignored today.
Would you also consider sending the National Guard into red states and red cities that are also seeing high crime?
Sure, but there aren't that many of them. If you look at the top 25 cities that for crime, just about every one of those cities is run by Democrats.
The president did seem to back off for now the idea of unilaterally sending forces into other cities.
In a certain way, we should wait to be asked because they have cities that are so under control, out of control. So we go in and fix it. You really want to be asked to go. I hate to barge in on a city and then be treated horribly by corrupt politicians and bad politicians like a guy like Pritzker.
For his part, Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois offered this response to the president.
This is not about fighting crime. This is about Donald Trump searching for any justification to deploy the military in a blue city, in a blue state, to try and intimidate his political rivals. There is no emergency in Chicago that calls for armed military
Chicago kind of sucks, man.
intervention.
The reason why they call y'all Chirac.
Mr. President, do not come to Chicago. You are neither wanted here nor needed here.
My law enforcement source tonight knows the reality of policing in Chicago and D.C. He served as chief of the U.S. Capitol Police, executive chief of the D.C. Police, and director of the Illinois State Police. Terry Gaynor is with us now. So, Chief, Capitol Police go through an intense 6-month training at Quantico. The D.C. Police Academy is 28 weeks, followed by more than a year of supervised probation. The Guard do have experience working with local police departments, but they are, I guess I'm asking you, are they ready to serve as specialized, whatever that may mean? I'd be curious to know what you think, police units.
Brianna, thanks. It's good to be with you. No, the National Guard, as it's configured now, is not prepared to do this. There are good men and women there who are trained to do a particular function, war fighting or emergencies in the state, or train rails and fires and flood. That's good. They have some roles. In those years, I worked with in the Illinois State Police, or out in Washington. We partnered with the National Guard in a lot of ways. In this particular endeavor, arming those men and women and putting them in harm's way is risky and dangerous.
The Guard here in D.C. are now carrying weapons on their person. They had them in vehicles previously. Here's what Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said about the decision in the Oval Office today.
It's just common sense to make sure they're armed as well. And so they were rolling out ensuring they're armed, capable of defending themselves and others if need be, supporting law enforcement, and we're proud to be there serving.
Do you agree with that? Is it common sense that they're armed?
No, it is not. Again, when you put someone out on the street in an environment in which they are not normally operating, and in this area, crime fighting with a weapon, they're not trained for that. And so,
so with the military, they're trained to kill people. Now obviously law enforcement has similar training, But with the military, you're taught to like go in and attack, right? This is actually a funny story for you guys. So, and this actually led to a whole reform in law enforcement. So for some of you guys, we're really going to get in history right here. But so back in the 1980s, right, there was a heist going on, right, in Miami. And these two guys, I think they were robbing a bank or whatever. And the FBI actually ended up like catching them on surveillance, right? And while they were on while they hold on one sec, chat. Sorry. While they were while they were on surveillance with these guys, they basically got them in a corner. And what ended up happening was they got into a gunfight. Okay. And during this gunfight, the guy who was military trained, he ran up on the FBI agents. So as they were like taking cover trying to shoot with their revolvers, he ran up on them with a rifle and attacked them and killed them, right? He killed a couple of them. And ever since that shooting, that massacre, law enforcement started getting semi-automatic pistols, shotguns, rifles, etc. That's actually was like a turning point in law enforcement when it comes to using weapons. I'll show you guys a clip of it here in a second. But a couple of FBI agents died, and that changed law enforcement forever. But it kind of showed the discrepancy between how law enforcement is trained versus how the military is trained. And this guy, despite being shot and injured, kept progressing forward at them and was able to close the distance and take them out, unfortunately. Granted, he has superior firepower as well, but to see the two different types of training clash revealed quite a bit, right? And to this day, they still use that case to educate new law enforcement officers when it comes to use of force.
All the training law enforcement has, and we get a ton of it, about the use of force and de-escalation, how to work with the community, know your community, have great communication, having worked with each other in tough situations, how to handle people in erratic situations. Police train incessantly for that and still re-screw it up on some occasions. So these men and women are just not prepared for it. He's overestimating his assessment of what those National Guard personnel can do now and demonstrating his inexperience in policing in a complex environment.
You were, as I mentioned, with DC Police. You work closely with them as well during your time at the Capitol. The House Oversight Committee is looking into allegations of manipulated DC crime statistics. Did you ever have reason to believe that the city's crime stats were manipulated? And how big of a deal would it be for something like that to happen?
Well, it would be significant if someone was manipulating crime stats. It probably is a federal violation because we're reporting that up through the FBI. And the Metropolitan Police Department was aware of an allegation of misconduct against one of its commanders, and that's an active investigation. But I think it's a leap to go from there to say that all the benefits and gains that police department has made over the last couple of years, or particularly since last year or the year before, is because the numbers have been doctored. I think that's just a canard and trying to make excuses to justify what they're trying to do. And let me tell you this, the DC police and every police department I'm aware of, and I've worked with a lot of them over the country now, works very closely with the FBI and the DEA and the U.S. Marshal Service and ATF. They have good relationships in crime fighting. If there are extra personnel in those agencies to do more for a local police department, then continue partnering with the local police department in the lane of which they're best suited. So, for instance, the U.S. Marshal's forte is generally serving warrants. There's a ton of warrants throughout the United States that could use help being served. The FBI, tremendous investigators, and they historically ran a 1 week or 2 week homicide investigation course, kind of a senior level investigative course. They haven't been doing that lately. They don't have enough personnel. So there's a right way to do this, to have a strategy to work together. And God love the National Guard. There is a role for them. We use them extensively during big events in Washington, like the State of the Union or the inauguration, for very particular things for which they were trained. So we can be partners, but throwing them out there, if I put officers on the street armed, asking them to fight crime with as little training as the National Guard is getting now to do that and being brought in from other states, that would be a dereliction of duty. So I think the people making these decisions ought to get their head straight and think through what they're trying to do to these men and women. You're putting people in harm's way.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker he had said this about Chicago. He had actually criticized the administration for cuts to law enforcement in Chicago. They have cut more than $800 million in DOJ grants for local law enforcement, and the president's budget calls for more than $1 billion more in cuts. Why do those kind of cuts stand out when the president is lamenting the state of crime in cities?
Well, in some respects, I think he's speaking with a forked tongue. I know this. In the last 10 years since I left government service, I've been working for the Center for Naval Analysis, one of the big contractors for the Justice Department, who was brought in senior law enforcement officers like myself, experienced in city and county and state policing, and we're working on things like the public safety partnership in some 60 cities across the United States. In the first quarter of those years, the grants were ended for those endeavors that would have focused on the very things we need to do to reduce crime. You may know there's 93 federal jurisdictions across the United States. Project Safe Neighborhood also was a funded program for which just after January of this year, the Department of Justice ended the support they were getting from senior law enforcement officers. Smart Policing Initiative, where law enforcement, the community, were partnering with educational institutions to figure out the socioeconomic causes of crime and then addressing that smartly.
As you guys can see, they're very pissed off about this shit.